You won't believe how it all began. Imagine being in a crowded restaurant, where the air smells of roasted steak and garlic bread, where the clinking of silverware and the low murmur of conversations mix with soft background jazz. Everyone is minding their own business, but then something happens that makes every head in the room turn. A man in a sharp suit, confident and proud, steps up to pay for his lavish meal. He is no ordinary man, he's the kind of figure everyone recognizes from magazines and business articles. His name, Richard Halden, a millionaire CEO, known for his ruthless strategies and luxurious lifestyle. He always appeared untouchable, as if the world bent to his will. Yet on this night, when the waiter swiped his platinum card, the unthinkable happened. The card was declined. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound of the machine's rejection beep echoed like a gunshot across the room. And in that silence, just when mockery and whispers started spreading, a little girl stepped forward, her voice trembling but brave. That girl was Lily, the 10-year-old daughter of a struggling single dad who sat quietly at the corner table. And what she did next changed not only Richard Halden's life, but her father's, and maybe even yours as you hear this story. So stay with me, because by the end, you'll realize why this moment became unforgettable. And if you haven't already, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more stories that touch the heart and shake the soul. Lily was small, with her hair tied in a messy ponytail and her shoes a little too worn out for a fancy restaurant like this. Her father, Daniel, a single dad who worked 2 jobs just to keep food on their table, had brought her here as a rare treat. They didn't belong in a place where waiters wore white gloves and people spoke in hushed, pretentious tones, but tonight was different. Daniel had promised Lily that once a year, no matter how tight money was, they'd go somewhere special. She was his little princess, and she deserved to feel like it. They sat quietly, enjoying their modest meal, when the scene with the CEO unfolded. Richard, red-faced and sweating, barked at the waiter, "Run it again. Do you know who I am? That card has more money than your entire staff will see in a lifetime." But the waiter, polite but firm, shook his head. "I'm sorry, sir. The system says declined." The restaurant murmured. People smirked. Someone whispered, "So much for being a millionaire." And in that moment of humiliation, it wasn't his wealth or power that could save him, it was an unexpected act of kindness. Lily tugged at her father's sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, "he looks scared." Daniel frowned, embarrassed. "Sweetheart, don't get involved. It's not our business." But Lily's heart was too big, too innocent. She slipped out of her chair, walked right up to the stunned CEO, and reached into her tiny purse, the same one her dad had given her with a few dollars inside for emergencies. She pulled out a crumpled $5 bill and handed it to the millionaire. "Mister," she said softly, "you can use mine." The entire restaurant froze. Richard blinked in disbelief. The man who had boardrooms at his feet, who was feared by rivals and admired by journalists, now stood with a $5 bill trembling in his hand, offered by a little girl in patched-up clothes. And for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar, shame mixed with gratitude. He knelt down to her level, his eyes stinging. Why would you help me?" he asked. Lily shrugged innocently. "Because my daddy says when someone's in trouble, and you can help, you should. Even if they don't look like they need it." Those words hit harder than any corporate defeat Richard had ever endured. Here was a child who had nothing compared to him, yet she was willing to give everything she had without hesitation. Daniel rushed forward, mortified. "Lily, you can't just..." But before he could stop her, Richard pressed the bill back into her tiny hand, closing her fingers around it. "Keep it," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You've already given me more than money could." The waiter, unsure what to do, excused himself while Richard scrambled for another form of payment. Eventually, a call to his assistant resolved the bill, but the humiliation lingered. Yet instead of storming out in anger, Richard did something no one expected. He walked over to Daniel's table, pulled out a chair, and sat down. "May I?" he asked softly, a vulnerability in his tone that surprised everyone. Daniel, cautious, nodded. For the next hour, the millionaire CEO sat with a single dad and his daughter, listening to stories of scraped knees, late-night homework, and the quiet strength of a father who never gave up, no matter how much the world weighed on him. Richard laughed, he cried, and for once, he was just a man, not a CEO, not a millionaire, just a man who realized he'd lost touch with the things that truly mattered. What happened that night was only the beginning. Because that unthinkable act by Lily, that $5 gesture, would soon unravel secrets, spark unlikely friendships, and change lives in ways none of them could have imagined. And by the time we circle back to that moment, you'll see why you're here listening now. But before we continue, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because Chapter 2 is where everything comes crashing down, and where love, sacrifice, and redemption take center stage.